All right, so today we're diving deep into Jörg-Owe essay, and it's called The Impact of AI on the Job Market in the Short, Medium, and Long Term. The most at-risk professions.
Right.
And it's a big one. So
yeah, it's a big one.
buckle up, everybody.
Schneppat really kind of lays out I think, a very comprehensive picture of what the potential impacts of AI on jobs is going to be.
And I like how he breaks it down to the short term, the medium term, and the long term.
He does, yeah.
Which I think is helpful because...
And then, of course, everybody wants to know the answer to the question, like what jobs are actually at risk.
Exactly. So let's just get right into it with the short term.
Yeah.
Because Schneppat argues that, AI is already changing the job market.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He even cites a study that estimates that 5% of jobs in the U.S. have already been affected by AI.
It's happening now.
And then he mentions companies like BT and Klarna that are already replacing workers with AI.
And what I find fascinating is that Schneppat really emphasizes that this isn't impacting every job the same way.
Right.
Certain jobs are more susceptible to these changes.
Right.
And he particularly points to jobs with repetitive tasks.
Uh-huh.
So think manufacturing, retail customer service. These are the jobs that are really kind of on the front lines of this shift towards AI.
I feel like we're stepping into like a sci-fi movie,
Yeah.
Like where it's like robots on the factory floor.
Totally.
And AI chatbots, answering our calls.
Yeah.
But he does say that while some jobs are being lost,
right,
new ones are emerging too, right?
Yeah, and that's a crucial point. It's not just about jobs going away. It's a transformation.
Uh-huh.
He actually uses the word transformation to talk about this.
I like that word.
It is a good one.
It is.
And so he suggests that the key to navigating the short-term disruption is adaptability.
Right.
And he stresses that reskilling and upskilling are essential.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit. What does he actually mean by reskilling?
And upskilling.
Those are such buzzwords.
They are.
Reskilling is really about gaining completely new skills for a different job.
Okay.
So, for example, somebody's working in manufacturing. They might need to reskill to go into a job in data analysis.
I saw like a total
career change.
Career change.
Okay.
Upskilling is about enhancing the skills that you already have to stay relevant in your current field.
Okay.
So let's say you're a customer service representative.
Mm-hmm.
You might need to upskill by learning how to manage AI-powered customer service systems.
So it's kind of about being proactive and taking ownership of your career in this evolving job market.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that we all kind of need to be thinking about.
For sure.
Let's move on to the medium term then.
Okay, yeah.
Because now we're talking about, Schneppat estimates 300 million jobs globally.
Wow.
Could be vulnerable to AI.
That's a lot.
It's a huge number.
It is.
So again, he stresses that new jobs are also going to be emerging during this period.
Right.
But the challenge, according to Schneppat, is making sure that workers have the skills and resources to actually transition into these new roles.
That makes sense.
And so again, he comes back to this idea of reskilling and upskilling. And he says that this is important not just for individuals, but also for industries.
Right.
To be thinking about how they can support their workers.
Yeah, exactly.
In this transition.
Yeah. And he brings up this interesting point about technological exclusion. So it's not just about having the skills, but also making sure that people have access to the resources and the opportunities to develop those skills.
So like the playing field isn't level, if you will, if you don't have that access to education or, whatever it may be. Yeah.
And he argues that governments and companies really need to play a more proactive role in investing in training programs, particularly for people who are most vulnerable to losing their jobs because of AI.
So it's about creating a more equitable approach to this technological advancement so that everybody benefits and not just a select few.
That's the goal.
So who exactly is most vulnerable in this medium-term scenario? Does he offer any insight into that?
He does. His research indicates that women and low-skilled workers are at higher risk of job displacement.
Really?
And this is partly due to the types of jobs that they typically hold, often roles with a lot of tasks that can be automated.
So what we're seeing is that AI isn't just impacting the job market.
Right.
It's potentially making existing social and economic inequalities worse.
Yeah. It really highlights the need to think about the ethical implications of AI alongside its economic impact.
Definitely.
Schneppat emphasizes the need for proactive measures to mitigate these potential downsides.
Okay, so we've talked about the short-term and the medium-term impact of AI on the job market. We've talked about the importance of reskilling, upskilling.
Right.
The emergence of new jobs, the groups that are most vulnerable to these changes.
Yeah.
But
we're just getting started.
I think things get really interesting as we move into the long term. And I think this is going to be a real eye-opener for folks.
I think so, too. The long-term view is where his analysis gets even more thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Because he really predicts some significant and disruptive shifts in the workforce as AI continues to evolve and integrate into our lives.
It's going to be fascinating to talk about.
It is.
But of course, we're going to save that for part 2.
Yeah, we are.
Of our deep dive. So don't go anywhere.
Please.
We'll be right back to delve into those long-term impacts.
And we'll talk about some of the professions that Schnepphat says are at risk.
It's surprising.
Yeah.
In the age of AI.
So stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. We were talking about the medium-term impacts of AI on the job market last time from Schnepphat's essay. And now things are going to get really interesting as we move into the long term.
Yeah, Schnepphat doesn't shy away from these really bold predictions, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He suggests that by 2030, we could see up to 800 million jobs globally impacted by AI.
Yeah, and that's a lot to take in.
It's a big number.
But what really struck me is when he starts talking about wage polarization.
Yeah, he does talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah, and he argues that AI could actually lead to a widening gap between, high skill, high wage jobs and low skill, low wage jobs.
So essentially like a shrinking of the middle class.
Yeah, potentially increasing inequality.
It's kind of a scary thought.
It is a concerning societal shift.
Yeah, so in this long-term scenario, how do we make sure that, the benefits of AI are distributed fairly?
Well, Schnepphat emphasizes that we need to be proactive in addressing these challenges, and he believes that governments, companies, and individuals all have a role to play.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, he keeps coming back to this idea of reskilling and upskilling, and he suggests that, focusing on uniquely human skills like creativity, critical thinking, and complex problem solving will be really important.
So it's not just about learning to code or operate a robot.
No.
It's about honing those skills that AI can't really replicate.
Right, and it's about those things that make us human.
Okay, so let's get to the part that I know everyone's been reading for.
Yeah.
The list.
The list.
Which professions does Schnepphat actually say are most at risk in this AI-driven future?
Okay, so some of them might not be that surprising.
Okay.
Like customer service representatives.
Okay.
They're pretty high on the list as AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants become increasingly sophisticated.
Right.
And drivers, too.
Yeah.
They face a significant risk as autonomous vehicles become more common.
Okay, those make sense to me. But I was a little bit surprised to see that Schnepphat includes software developers and web developers on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are often, touted as like the jobs of the future.
You would think, right.
Right.
But Schnepphat makes this really interesting point that AI is getting better and better at actually writing code. And optimizing code. So this doesn't necessarily mean that all software developers are going to be out of work.
Right.
But it does suggest a shift in the skills needed to actually thrive in that field.
So you're saying like no job is really safe?
Well,
what other professions does he say?
Let's see, paralegals.
Oh, wow.
Because AI is already being used for things like document review and legal research, and that could really impact the need for human paralegals.
It's both fascinating and a little scary how far AI has come.
It is.
So is everyone doomed?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
Schnepphat clarifies that the risk of automation varies across sectors.
Okay.
And some jobs are just inherently more resilient to AI disruption than others.
Okay, so like what would be an example of that?
He says, for instance, wait staff face a much higher risk than medical professionals.
Okay, that makes sense.
So what makes some professions more resistant to this impact?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, it comes down to the complexity and frequency of tasks.
Okay.
Jobs that involve a lot of repetitive, easily automatable tasks are more vulnerable.
Okay.
So think of a waiter taking orders and serving food. Those tasks can be broken down into steps that AI can learn.
Right. Whereas like a surgeon or a doctor has to make these really complex decisions and use empathy and adapt to unique situations. And those things are much harder to program into a machine.
And Schnepphat emphasizes that even within the same profession, the specific tasks you perform can influence how vulnerable you are.
Oh, interesting.
So it's important to really analyze your own job and identify those tasks that might be susceptible to automation and think about how you can adapt.
So it's not just about the job title, but the skills and tasks involved.
Yeah.
So he's really encouraging us to think critically about our own roles.
Yeah, and be proactive.
In
the face of these changes.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation.
It has.
I feel like Schneppat has laid out a vision of the future that's compelling, but also a little daunting.
I agree.
But I also feel like he's giving us this framework for how to navigate this new landscape.
Right. He doesn't just leave us hanging.
Which is empowering.
Yeah. In the next part, we're going to move beyond just identifying the problems and really delve into Schneppat's solutions.
That's great.
Because he offers some really concrete strategies for individuals, companies, and governments to navigate this whole AI revolution and make sure it benefits everyone.
I can't wait to hear about those.
Me too.
So we'll see you back here soon.
Yes.
For the final part.
The final part
of our deep dive
into Schneppat's essay.
Okay, so welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into Jörg-Owe Schneppat's essay on AI and the future of work. And I have to say, you know, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have. It's been
from the short-term disruptions to these really massive potential long-term shifts.
But I have to say, I'm walking away feeling a little unsettled.
Me too. I get it.
Yeah.
It's a little unnerving, but
Schneppat doesn't really sugarcoat the challenges, does he?
No, he doesn't. But I think what makes his essay so valuable is that he also offers like these concrete solutions.
He does.
So he's not just, you know, throwing up his hands and saying, you know, we're all doomed. He's actually giving us a roadmap.
Yeah, a roadmap.
For, you know, how to navigate this whole AI revolution.
And how to make sure it actually benefits everyone.
Right, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So let's get into the practical stuff. Like, what are his key recommendations? Like, what can we actually do to prepare for this future that's coming?
Well, one of the biggest things that he keeps coming back to is this idea of reskilling and upskilling.
Yeah, we've talked about those terms a bit, but let's actually break it down.
Yeah.
Like, what does it actually look like in practice?
So reskilling for an individual could mean getting completely new skills for a different job.
Okay.
So let's say you're a truck driver.
Uh-huh.
And we know autonomous vehicles are on the horizon. You might need to reskill by learning how to operate or maintain those vehicles, or maybe transition into a different role in the transportation industry, like logistics or data analysis.
So it's like anticipating the changes in your field and then...
And getting ahead of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What about upskilling?
Upskilling is more about enhancing the skills you already have to stay competitive in your current role.
So let's say I'm a graphic designer.
Yeah.
AI tools are getting really good at creating visuals.
Yeah.
So how do I upskill in that scenario?
So you might learn how to use those AI tools effectively.
Yeah.
You know, and really focus on the creative and strategic parts of design that AI can't do yet.
So it's not about being replaced by the tool.
Right.
It's about figuring out how to use the tool.
Exactly.
To your advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of this responsibility falls on the individual.
Right.
To make these changes. But what about companies and governments?
Yeah, Schneppat argues that companies really need to start seeing AI as a tool to empower their workforce.
Okay.
Not as a threat.
I like that.
So they need to invest in training programs, you know, create opportunities for professional development, and even rethink job roles to better integrate AI.
So instead of just replacing workers with AI, it's about, you know, retraining and upskilling.
Yeah, helping their workforce evolve.
Their existing workforce.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, what about governments?
Well, Schneppat says that governments have a really important role to play in creating an environment that supports this whole transition to an AI-powered economy.
Okay. How do they do that?
So they could invest in education and training programs, provide financial help for people who are trying to reskill, and work with companies to develop training initiatives that are specific to their industries.
And he also talks about this idea of technological exclusion, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Like, it's not just about having access to training.
Right.
It's about making sure that everyone has a chance to actually develop these skills.
And he's worried that if we don't address these issues of access and equity, the benefits of AI will only go to a small group of people.
Right. It'll just make inequality worse.
Exactly.
Which is what we were just talking about.
So he advocates for, you know, bridging the digital divide, making sure everyone has the opportunity to participate in this new economy.
It's interesting how this started as a conversation about jobs, and now it's become this bigger conversation about, you know, social equity.
Right.
And opportunity.
It's connected.
It's all connected, yeah.
Yeah.
It really highlights how interconnected all these issues are in this age of AI.
For sure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Schneppat's work, I'm feeling a real mix of emotions.
I get it.
You know, on the one hand,
yeah,
like these challenges
it's daunting,
are enormous.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the opportunities
Right.
are really incredible.
And AI has so much potential.
It does.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're at this
we use it wisely.
turning point. You know, like a real major societal transformation. And the choices we make now are going to have a huge impact on the future.
And I think Schneppat's essay really serves as both a warning and a call to action.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's saying, like, let's be proactive, let's be adaptable, and let's really have these conversations
and work together
about the future we want to create.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing he says is that we're not just passive bystanders.
Right. We have a choice.
In this whole thing. We actually have agency.
We can shape things.
We can shape the future of work and really the future of humanity.
I love that.
If we're willing to engage with these issues.
And work together to find solutions.
And work together. So it's not just about surviving this AI revolution.
Right.
It's about thriving in it.
Exactly.
And that takes foresight and adaptability and a commitment to creating a future that works for everyone.
Well said. I think that's a great place to end it.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Jörg-Owe Schneppat's work.
Yeah, this was a good one.
It really was. We hope you found it insightful, and we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
On the future of work in the age of AI.
Let us know.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that matters. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep shaping the future.